Welcome to the second edition of what we are calling Musings from the Mountains. I know those of you that watched the first are surprised that this was greenlit for a sequel, but we are in a new location. We're not in a bathroom anymore, although we weren't in a bathroom the first location. Time. Yeah, an undisclosed location, but we are in a different location. And we're here to give you kind of what we saw today at fall practice. Second day, still no pads, so obviously there wasn't a lot of hitting, that kind of thing. But we did learn a few things today. I think it's clear to me, at least from watching it, I know one of the questions everybody's going to ask is about quarterbacks. I don't think West Virginia has a starting quarterback yet. At times, I thought Austin Kendall looked good. At times, I thought Jack Allison looked good. For a whole, I think both obviously need to continue to get better. I like what Jarrett Dagey did, but obviously there's a situation there with his eligibility and how that plays out. I do think right now, just from what we've seen, Trey Lowe is the furthest behind.
Yes.
What do you feel, Patrick?
I feel like, same thing that we've kind of seen all spring. All the quarterbacks showed flashes, but it was kind of more half and half. A lot of inconsistency. We saw Austin Kendall doing what he does really good, especially in this is what will fit in Neil Brown's offense as his quick release. Now, he had some great passes today. He had a lot of zip on the ball, I feel like. But like I said, when he gets out of the pocket, he throws on the run. Some passes were sloppy. Jack Allison, another one who has a strong arm. I know he didn't play that great in the bowl game against Syracuse, but like I said, he had some great deep balls today. I really believe that. Trey Lowe, like you said, I agree with you that I think he's the furthest behind out of those two. But Jarrett Dagey as well. He showed some flashes today, but still, there's a lot of drop passes today. A lot of balls overthrown. I think it was Austin Kendall who had the interception to Dylan Tonkery today. But still, they showed flashes, but like I said, there was a lot of inconsistency still at the quarterback position. And like I said, when coaches know, they'll know when someone stands out. By the time West Virginia doesn't have they don't for sure have the starting quarterback right now.
I think looking today, just from my opinion, if you ask me, the two passes that stuck out to me, both were probably thrown by Jack Allison. Yeah. One on a deep ball and one where that he fit in between 2 to 3 defenders.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I think he still struggled with some of the things you saw last year in the bowl game and even in the spring. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how things develop. Another thing I want to touch on is, if you've read the observations on our website already, if you're a member of WVSports.com, I recommend you do. If you're not, I think that one thing people are going to get confused a little bit about is they're using a lot of different personnel groups right now. There's no such thing as a depth chart. They don't even have pads on. So at this point, they're rolling in a lot of different guys at a lot of different positions. You're seeing a lot of players working at different spots. A lot of guys working together that maybe hadn't worked together in the past. You'll see that on the offensive line, on the defensive line. At Bandit, there were some guys playing there. And I know Quandarius Qualls is a guy that I noticed today had been playing some defensive line, was playing more linebacker today. So I think you're going to continue to see the mixing and matching, when we are available to watch practice. That's part of fall camp. Spring is more about experimentation. Fall camp's about finding out where guys are, but you're still going to move them around, try to find some different groups. And we got some questions yesterday about the second team, third team, and right now I don't really think there's a thing. You had Josh Norwood at times working with the second team, third team, and you've had comments that say obviously that he was moved there for a reason. So I think that stuff's going to naturally play out, Patrick.
And like you said, Keenan, like I said, depth charts, I don't want to say non-existent right now, but it's kind of all over the place. You're seeing guys get a lot of reps at different places right now. But Keenan, you mentioned near the end of practice that really the only thing that we're kind of confident right now that there is a first team for is the offensive line. Offensive line is the same offensive line that repped at the first team during spring. Colt McKivitz at left tackle, Mike Brown at left guard, Chase Barron at center, Josh Sills at right guard, and Kelby Wickline at right tackle.
Same group again.
We got some guys mixed in there. One thing I do want to point out, though, that I thought was interesting based off of Matt Moore's post-practice press conference was talking about Mike Brown. He said he's a guy that made a lot of strides during the spring, but one of the biggest questions has been his conditioning. Can he play 50 to 60 plays a game? He said, yeah, he has the confidence that he could, but he really feels like if he did, though, he would lose his focus there kind of late in those snaps. So there's really a focus on developing people behind him. A name that was brought up was James Gamitter. He's a guy that Matt Moore really likes his strength. Guy that made the transition. He's making the transition from defensive line to offensive line right now. He's working at left guard. Another guy that's being his name's being brought up is John Hughes, the JUCO transfer. He can play guard and tackle. So really, now it's the question of just working some guys, developing some guys. But that's one thing I thought was very interesting today regarding the offensive line situation.
Don't have a lot to talk about tight ends. Those that know me, that's always a topic that fascinates me. But something that has really caught my attention, I mentioned it on the last show, was punting. We found some answers there. Colton
Specialists
McGee,
in general, yeah.
Leighton Bechtel are punting right now for West Virginia. Still waiting on word, or if there's word, or if he exists with the Aussie punter at this point. But those two guys were booting it. I actually liked what I saw out of Colton. I liked what I saw out of Leighton for the most part. I think those two guys are going to have an interesting battle because of the kicker spots. You have Evan Staley and Legg working those out. So that was interesting to me just because we were able to see who's punting.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it. I mean, McGee's been the guy that you thought could do that if it wasn't going to be the Aussie, so I think that'll be interesting to watch. From just a personnel standpoint, Patrick, anything really stand out to you today?
Well, you mentioned special teams, and something I do want to bring up too. I mentioned yesterday with Evan Staley. He was listed as the kickoff guy, field goals, punter. Like I said, we highly doubt that's going to be the case in the season. Like I said, that's a lot for one player. That's a lot for his leg. Something I do want to mention is punt returner and kickoff returner. With Marcus Sims being gone, that opens up the window for numerous guys, and there's a lot of guys getting reps at those two positions. We got Keith Washington, Tevin Bush, Kenny McCoy, Alex Stinkfield, Winston Wright, and Sam James. There's someone else getting, but we weren't able to make his. He wasn't listed on the roster, number 17. Never really did get any clarification onto who that was. But a lot of special teams in general, kickoff return, punt return, it's always been kind of a problem for West Virginia over the years. So a lot of guys are getting reps, so I feel like it's going to be very interesting to see who comes out of the winner of that position battle.
And everybody asks about freshmen. Which freshmen are standing out, what newcomers are standing out. To me, a guy that caught my attention today, well, two guys. I'll give you one on each side of the ball to me. On the defensive side, I mentioned his name yesterday, Bartlett. Jared Bartlett, I was impressed. He was running, early in the drills, some of the run drills and things. He was working with, I guess, quote unquote, the first team unit. Not really, as I said, they mix and match, but he was in there working. He has long arms, great length, good frame. I think down the road, he's going to be an exciting guy to watch develop, as he goes through his career. On the offensive side, to me, the guy that stood out other than the quarterbacks, which you had already mentioned, was the transfer from Temple, Sean Ryan. He impressed me. He caught my eye. Every time he catches the ball, he's so smooth, so fluid, and he's a guy that you can tell, joked about crossing the fingers today, knocking on wood, that he's going to be eligible and that waiver is going to be approved. There's good reason for that. I think that if he is, he's a possible difference maker for this team.
And one of the things that Neil Brown mentioned yesterday too is that in getting Sean Ryan and in getting George Campbell, two transfers like that, they add length. He said you can tell with their size. George Campbell comes in at 6'4". They lost a lot of that length that they kind of had from last season. They don't really have a true deep threat now with Marcus Sims being gone. They don't have David Sills. They're also missing Gary Jennings, so I feel like those two guys can really bring some length. And the other thing with George Campbell is that he's a graduate transfer. They don't have before George Campbell, they didn't have a senior on the roster when it comes to wide receiver. So he brings in that kind of experience playing at another big time program like Florida State. But most importantly, they add length to the group.
I think looking at the receivers as a whole, I weirdly feel more comfortable than I expected to at this stage. Losing a guy like Marcus Sims, your most experienced wide receiver, is going to leave you a little thin, obviously. But watching them the last 2 days, I just feel like they have bodies there, that they have guys. It's about now turning that potential, because we can talk about potential all day. Potential does not win you football games. Turning that potential into production is going to be the key for that group. But if they can find it,
it's kind of like the offensive line in some ways. I really like there's potential there. I mentioned yesterday with Kelby Wickline, Chase Barrett, and Mike Brown. There's a lot to like about those guys, but still a lot of unproven guys, like a guy like Sam James, Bryce Wheaton, guys who looked the part, guys who have stood out, but they still need to see what they're capable of, in the game setting.
And we'd be remiss too without talking about Fan Day today. Big turnout, really, for Fan Day. A lot of fans coming out, a lot of excitement. I talked to Matt Wells the other day. They've sold 25,000, right around 25,000 season tickets, which is actually right at the number they sold last year. And considering, the expectation differences in the two, that speaks volumes of, how much excitement is around the program right now, which I think is important. I mean, I do think that's an important element. But day 2 in the books, we did learn some things. You can read more of our work at WVSports.com. We're going to have a lot of content rolling out, features, observations, videos, you name it. I encourage you. We have a great promo going on right now. If you sign up for an annual, it's 25% off, and we'll give you $75 in gear and Adidas, as well as 3 months free. So,
well, most importantly too, you get to see our faces some more.
Yeah, faces for radio. But this was the second edition. I hope you continue to tune in. We're going to try to continue to do this and expand on this throughout fall camp. I think we found a suitable place that people won't confuse for a bathroom. And other than that, check back in with us tomorrow.